Hi, I'm Marc Randolph, co-founder of Netflix and 6 other companies. Over the years, I've heard that will never work thousands of times, but I've learned there are things we all can do to increase the chances that they will. So join me for That Will Never Work. Hey everybody, and welcome to That Will Never Work. This podcast is called That Will Never Work for a reason. It's because everyone who has an idea at some point gets told that will never work. And as you know, I'm a huge believer that usually there is some way to make it work. But I'm also a realist, and I recognize that some categories are in fact harder than others. They're more conservative, it's more difficult to find the decision maker, it's harder to break into. And in today's podcast, I'll be speaking with an entrepreneur who is trying to crack a notoriously difficult market, which is the education market. I'm here today with Benny Boas, the founder and CEO of Upright Education. Welcome to the podcast, Benny.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. Well, first of all, huge fan of the show. Love the book as well, and really happy to be here.
That's fantastic. So what I'd love you to do to start this off is I've gave the scantest of idea that you're maybe working on something in education. So what I'd love you to do is tell me what the problem is you were trying to solve, what you're doing, what progress you're making, and then maybe you can kind of segue into what it is you want to talk about today.
Great. So at Upright Education, we partner with higher education institutions, so colleges and universities, to provide accelerated training programs in technology. So these are called technology boot camps, and what they do is they essentially are sort of a one-stop shop. They're a short-form course or program that a student enrolls into. They're very intensive, and the purpose of these programs is to help adults or new learners find their first job in tech or start a career in tech. So it's essentially teaching very new beginners or folks with low to no technical skills, all the skills that they need to then go out and get their entry role in a tech job like sales or UX design or software development.
So these are done for the students, the existing students of these institutions, or are these run as like adjunct things that are for the community?
Yeah, so great question. So as we all know, during COVID, you know, higher education institutions definitely took a hit in terms of their undergraduate enrollment. What really was interesting to find is that there's a new market of adult learners that's been emerging from for the last 10 years. And those are folks who are sort of people who need like a second chance at a career. These are people who are underemployed. Maybe they went to college and graduated and now working in a job that they don't like, or they're unemployed and they can't find work, or maybe they never even went to college. And they don't want to go back to school. Like they don't want to go and take another 4-year course or take a 2-year master's degree to then reinsert themselves into the job market. So this is essentially a course that's run through the continuing education departments of an institution or through what you'd call like the non-credit side of a school. So in community colleges, that'd be called workforce development. And in higher education institutions like universities and colleges, 4-year colleges, those would be called the continuing ed or professional ed department. So, yeah.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that exists. I mean, at least it does in my community. I live in Santa Cruz County, and I get those flyers in the mail all the time about continuing education and all kinds of courses, you know, flower arranging and organic gardening. And I got to imagine there's people who are also teaching tech skills.
They are, but the thing is that they're sort of bundled, right? So you would need to take maybe like an intro to web development course on top of a programming course on top of a back-end course just to learn all the skills that you need to be a web application developer. Ours is sort of this all-together one-stop program where you not only get the technical skills, but you also get technical career coaching as well as professional real-world experience by working with real employers throughout the course, so that when you graduate from the program, you're job ready. So it's a little bit different than some of the training courses you might get at a college because these are very intensive. So those courses might be anywhere from like 20 to 60 hours. These courses are 480 hours. Yeah.
Oh, which ones? Your courses are 480
hours? 480
hours?
hours.
What is a standard, if I took a course for a semester, how many hours is that?
For a 4-credit course, let's say, it could be anywhere from 12 to 16 hours per week. So for about 15 to 17 weeks, perhaps. So that's about 160 to 180 hours, and that's just for a four credit unit.
But yours is a lot of hours.
Yes,
Huge amount of hours.
Ton.
Wow. So it's dramatically different type of education, I think.
It is. It is. The type of education we provide is training. It's not necessarily college based. It's very different from your average college course, right? Your average college course is sort of a one-off. You take it and you learn maybe a little bit about this and a little bit about that, but you don't necessarily get all the skills that you need to then just get a job right after. So this is a very intensive program. So as you can imagine, this is for very high intent learners, right? These are people who already really know they want a job change, but they don't want to go back to get a degree to do that.
So it's a lot shorter than going back and getting a whole nother degree in computer science.
Yes.
But it's a lot longer than saying I can just do an after work class for an hour for a few weeks.
Yeah, that's correct. So the thing is that if you are going to go, if you're going to go to one of our programs, it's either 12-week full-time. So it's full-time. That's 480 hours full-time, 12 weeks. That's 40, 60 hours a week. And if it's part-time, it's 24 weeks, but it's somewhere around 20 hours per week. And these are all live online. So in the classroom, you have, an instructor, a couple TAs, as well as a career coach, all in a classroom with peers together learning online in a live setting.
Wow. Okay. This is very dramatically different.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd be able to just kind of quickly move on from this piece, but to understand it, so when you say live online,
Yeah.
So basically I would sit down with my fellow students, my TAs, but we would actually not be taught in the class. We'd be watching it online. Is that?
No. So like, imagine you're on a Zoom call, right? And you're with all of your colleagues, but instead of being on a Zoom call for work, you're on a Zoom call learning in a classroom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so live, you mean it's happening real time.
With an instructor,
but it's
real
not,
time.
It's not live in terms of the fact that I can, like I am with you, or I can reach out and scuff up your brand new white shoes.
Yeah, so you can't, it's not physically live in the same room, but it's live as in it's instructor led. So it's synchronous.
Okay. I totally get it.
Yeah.
All right. Really different. So you are running this now. It's going. This is not just a dream, but it's actually reality.
Yeah. So these programs, what I just described, is not like a new phenomenon. They've been around for maybe over a decade now. It's a tech reskilling boot camp. And they're really highly popular, especially in a lot of, primarily in a lot of metropolitan areas where these programs first started out. And the industry is actually, it's starting to mature quite a bit. For a long time, these programs have been operated by private individual operators. So for-profit companies, such as some of the big ones are like General Assembly or Flatiron School. And, these are companies that are, venture-backed with large exits. But up until now, or more recently, like I said, these are all individual operators, providing these programs. Now colleges want to get in on the action. Their enrollment's going down. They know that there's a whole new market of adults that need to learn new skills. It's predicted by 2030, about half of the U.S. working population are going to need to learn new skills just to keep pace with what employers need. And colleges know that. So they're like, how do we get in on this? But these programs are nothing similar to what colleges do. They don't run on a college semester schedule. They are, led by not faculty or adjunct faculty or professors. They're led by industry professionals. They are also really expensive. To run one of these programs, it can cost over $50,000 just to run one. So for a long time, colleges just didn't play in the space. And now that there's such a need for digital skills and that this market has become so explosive, colleges want to get in on the action, and we're helping them get there quicker and with industry-leading programs. So, in fact, I started one of these companies. I started the first boot camp in the state of Vermont, in Burlington, which I know you're familiar with.
I am, right?
Yeah. So what was really amazing about that experience was
a Birkenstock camp. Is probably it was more closely more.
Yeah, Birkenstocks and dogs with bandanas.
Right. So how many of these are you running? And how many colleges have adopted this? How many are there?
Yeah. So right now we're partnered with about 7 institutions. We're in about over 20 campuses. We are working with schools all the way from Tennessee to Maine. Some big universities, some community colleges, And this isn't new to us. Like I said, I started one of the first boot camps in the East Coast. So these programs have been around for a while. So we've been able to essentially test them before the colleges get them. And we produced amazing results. Over 90% of our students were getting jobs right out of the program. On average, they're earning 40% more after the program than what they were earning in their salaries before the program. And I'd say we're pretty damn good at what we do.
So what can I help you with?
Well, so today, what I'd love to get your thoughts on is we've been doing a lot of B2B sales, as you can imagine. Our entire organization exists to partner with colleges, and then they would offer these programs through their continuing ed departments or workforce departments. And then we are enrolling the students and teaching the courses, et cetera. But we built out a really great sales organization, but what we haven't done is build out a really good brand. We haven't built out a lot of marketing around our brand. We haven't built out really any PR. In fact, this is probably the first, high profile conversation that I've ever had regarding my company. And we're starting to make a name for ourselves in the industry. So as you can imagine, I just don't know if it's even worth it right now. Like, where do I put my focus? We are in B2B, in a B2B business to business. You're primarily maturing relationships and nurturing those relationships through sales. And you're not focusing heavily on the brand, but I feel like there's an opportunity for us to really make a dent in this space and become a leader just through some of the work that we're already doing and getting our marketing tight. So essentially, I just want to know, should we even be focusing on our PR? Should we be focusing on our brand? Should we be focusing on our marketing? And if so, how do we do that?
So it's a really interesting question, and you're right. It's a really strategic question, because the relationship that you have built with these organizations is largely doing something that enables them. I mean, you said, quote unquote, they all want this. The colleges want this. They want to have these programs. And what you're really doing, if I understand it correctly, is letting them use their brand and extend it slightly into a different style of education. And so, to the degree that someone needs to know your name, it's not the end user. They really don't care, because as far as they're concerned, they're taking it from, through Colorado College, or they're taking it through Arizona State, or whoever it is you're working with. And to them, that's the brand. And so the brand that you're worried about is when college administrators are thinking about, we might want to extend our program, who should we go with? Which is a much, much, much narrower, like you said, it's a business to business brand. So when you're talking about extending this, possibly investing time in people knowing who you are, do you mean with consumers, or do you just mean having even more colleges know who you are?
Yeah. So what we're really trying to do is focus on our college partnership growth. We're trying to, for consumers at least, we're not really concerned with whether or not we are, the known entity. It's the colleges that are, like you said, sort of putting themselves on the front line. But what we want to do is we want colleges to think, okay, boot camps, all right, Upright. Like sort of like how colleges used to think, okay, textbooks, okay, Kaplan, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a brand identity around our offerings that separates us from some of the other players in the space.
So that's fine, and that provides clarity. And in fact, I kind of think that's based on my limited understanding of what you're doing, pretty appropriate. It's certainly possible to have a consumer brand. And, in fact, one of the organizations I've been with a long time, which is Knowles, National Outdoor Leadership School, has probably the preeminent wilderness medicine school in the world. And their model is they market to end users and partner with other organizations to host them. So they basically have a similar model, which is you would take a wilderness medicine, a wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder, wilderness EMT through Arizona State or whoever it is, but you're basically interacting with Knowles and then showing up at the Arizona State campus to do your program. And that's effective for them. So, but the quick answer for you is, I know you said it's kind of exciting, actually, that you chose to talk about it here on the That Will Never Work podcast, but it's a waste of time, because although I do have a vibrant and fascinating highly educated, charming audience. I'm not sure how many of them are college educators. And more importantly, there is probably a very specific person at a university who makes the decision of who do I partner with. So now putting on my marketing hat, there's a couple of quick things, which is number one is you probably already know, but I would expect you to know who are the decision makers. How is this decision made? Where does it start? Where does it stop? Who blocks it? And that knowledge is the critical thing to have. And I would say that's any time you're trying to penetrate in a business-to-business setting. But education is an especially different beast in terms of where the budget comes from. Who's the person whose pain point you are solving most? But that person may not be the person who has any budget, or may that be a person who, oh, I really need this, but I'm afraid curriculum decisions have to go through this committee or this board, or that's the dean, or that's the, and you have to go, all right, this is sophisticated and I know it. I know that in the community colleges, it's usually here, here, and here. State schools is here, here, and here. Private schools, here, here, and here. But I know who these people are. And then you've got to be speaking about your business in places where they are listening. And I apologize to the few educators who are in fact listening today. This is a great program. You should do it. But it's probably not the place. And again, I'm not of that world, but I'm going to put on my magic hat here and I go, I can see it. I can see a conference. I can see a conference about new trends in education. I can see a place where the community colleges all gather to talk about latest trends. And your job is to be a speaker there. Mm. And you should be speaking at that conference. You should be talking about all the things you've learned about this. You should be positioning yourself as a thought leader in all the things that you started off by telling me about these trends and how, lo and behold, there is this new thing happening, which you may have heard about, but let me explain to you how it really works. Here's some of the traps you don't want to fall into. Here's how to run this kind of program. And you're not going up and tooting your own horn. Well, you are, but you're doing the humble brag way to do it, which is positioning yourself as I'm the person who really understands the space. And by extension, they're going to say, wow, well, if we think this could be an interesting one, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And his company probably is the place to do it. Mm. I'm also going to put my hat back on and go, I imagine there's a few publications that cover the higher education, continuing education market, probably called the Journal of Continuing. There's probably even a Journal of Continuing Education programs that take tons and tons of hours and are designed to help people get more money and a better job because they're so specialized. And you should be published in those publications. In other words, two simple things. So number one is really know who the decision makers are that you have to influence. And number two, how do those people get their information? And put yourself right there. It is not easy, but I just having been speaking to you, you're informed, you're articulate, you clearly understand the challenges of adding this new feature to them. And that's your job now, is to educate the educators, which is tell them, why is this important? What does it do? How can it help you? I feel your pain. That's my worst Bill Clinton imitation ever. But really, it's saying, I understand what you're up to, and then lo and behold, I have this solution here. Yeah. And that, as they say, that softens the ground for when you begin doing your business-to-business sales. That ends up being your lead gen for people who are inquiring and saying, I heard about this thing. I heard you speak at a conference. I heard you on the, not on the That Will Never Work podcast, but I heard you on the Trends in Higher Education podcast. And so all these things, maybe the investment is you start doing more targeted public relations.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice, Marc. The one thing that's as you sort of hinted at earlier, which is very true about what we do and the nature of this industry, is it's quite complex in that the value proposition is kind of niche, right? It exists sort of and a deep understanding and an embedded knowledge of the industry itself and what colleges want, who those decision makers are, et cetera. So, of course, communicating that is also a big problem, I think, for us because, we don't cost for the college. It doesn't cost anything to partner with us, right? It also, not on the hook for any minimum student enrollment or maximum. They can enroll one student per year or 1,000, and we'll partner with them all the same because we aggregate them into one live online classroom. And then they get a certain marketing fee or a cut of every student that comes into the course through their college. So as you can imagine, the sell isn't necessarily the hardest sell in the world. I'm not asking you to open up your books and find some room for me in your budget, allocate that to Upright, and then be off to the races. What I'm asking is, do you want to get ahead of the future of work? Do you want to be in front of the new trending path in education? And everything I just described to you, Marc, that's my business, right? That's my whole business. That's a lot that I just described to you. I just took a whole podcast, half an episode, to tell you about every piece of what works in our business and why it's so great, and why a college should partner with us. But finding those key words, finding those micro moments of communicating that messaging seems to be damn near impossible for me.
Well, I can tell you right now, you told me a lot of reasons why this is a great program for the end user. What's stuck in my mind is the person who graduates will make more money, that they'll find a job quickly. And that's all wonderful. Okay. And you also told me that colleges want to be progressive and they want and yes, the college president and the board will talk about that all day long. But fundamentally, you haven't really nailed why they should do this. Enrollment is slipping. How does this help enrollment? Revenues are slipping. How does this help revenue? Your message to these people has to be dead on about the things that they fundamentally care about. Yes, you have to fluff it up and put the bows and put the bells and whistles about outcomes and all that crap, because they don't want to go, yeah, I could make money selling crack paraphernalia too. But fundamentally, what you're really saying is, here is a way for you to generate additional revenue. Or what you may care about even more is these people end up doing more things with you. So the metrics that you're sharing with them may not be the 40% bump in earnings and the 80% placement rate. It could be that 73% of the people who take this course go on to take a different continuing education course with you. The average revenue per student we allocate is $721 or whatever the number is, and the growth is dramatic. So, for example, and again, my little marketing brain can't help but scramble on this stuff. You run a you find people, okay, who want to take this course. It must happen organically. Ask them, what college do you want to affiliate yourself with? And you just cut that college a check for $271.31. And when that check comes in, or you figure out who to mail it to, you're a clever salesperson. You go, hey, I have a student who affiliated themselves with you, and I have the money for you sitting right here. Who do I mail it to? And they go, well, that was easy. And you go, a lot more where that's coming from. All you have to do is put a blurb in the thing that this is available. There's, like you said, what you said before is very compelling. There's no overhead. There's no lift. And then if there is, you begin going through and chopping away all the red tape. If they go, we can't take the 271 unless someone's registered. And so figure out some different way to say, I'm not going to call them a student. They're an affiliate. I don't know. But you solve the problems to get to the things that will make them open their eyes and go, this is pretty powerful. And if the problem is enrollment, how are you helping enrollment? If the problem is revenue, how are you helping revenue? And combine that with the things I talked about before, which is, who do I speak to? Whose problem am I solving? Who has the decision-making authority to do this? Yeah,
I love what you said earlier about the lifetime value of the student, right? Like, just like, the coffee buyer at Starbucks, like how many times do they come back to buy that cup of coffee? And how do we initiate that relationship from our programs, right? How do we be that first touch? Like, what is the, the lifetime value of one of our boot camp graduates through these colleges? I really like what you said, because there is a prevailing, idea, I think, and it's been so for a while. There's a prevailing thought in the education space, especially in higher education, of the lifetime learner, or the lifelong learner. Sorry, right? Somebody who doesn't necessarily learn a skill, like a skill or a trade, or attain knowledge once, but needs to come back as the field or as whatever job they're working in changes. They need to come back and change also, so they need to learn new skills. And of course, as you know from somebody who's run and built technology teams, that is an obvious, that's an obvious piece of training in the tech talent pipeline for companies. And I would love to know that number. That number is like gold, what you just said, and that's such marketing genius.
Well, good idea. We'll call it a good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
There is a global lesson here, which is that for a lot of businesses, and yours is certainly one, you succeed through partnerships. You've chosen a path where I was going to say can't, but you prefer not to do it on your own, where it's more powerful if someone is helping you. And there's a quid pro quo here. And to be successful with a partner, you have to deal with their self-interest. They may find you a charming young man. They may say, I do care about the future of education. But fundamentally, what is going to make them move? And, when I talk about education, I describe it as one of the hardest markets in the world, because it's so old, because it is so conservative, it's so slow to adopt new things. You have got to find some really, really powerful incentive for someone to want to do that. And that's going to come from really identifying what's in their self-interest very, very explicitly, not just in a feel-good way, but a concrete, like you said. If you have proof that someone who does the boot camp comes back and does 3 more courses with them, that may not be the thing that swings it, but it will certainly help.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I think it's great. I love what you're doing. You have great outcomes for the students. So you are not shilling something which is worthless. You have something that genuinely is going to help people. And I think genuinely people will be aligned with wanting to help you. Now you just need to be really, really clear how they can benefit along with the students.
Yeah. I just wish that there was more college educators who are in your audience.
That's right. We'll have to figure out some marketing programs. That's right.
Great.
So those of you who know college educators, clue them in. This is a good episode.
Yeah.
So listen, good luck.
Thank you.
Really, and I would love to check in with you, in 6 to 12 months and see how this goes, because I think you have some real potential here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Marc.
My pleasure.
It.
Good luck.
And thank you to everybody listening as well.
Well, if you found that episode interesting, I got lots more for you, and it's all here in my book, That Will Never Work, The Birth of Netflix and the Amazing Life of an Idea. Or, if you want to ask me a question, I'd love for you to apply to be on the podcast. Just come to markrandolph.com/guest to apply.